Hello everyone, Konstantin's here. I'm a full stack developer and today I'm going to continue working on my progressive web application with Solid.js, TypeScript and Firebase. Let me show you my plan for today. I'm going to start from the infrastructure. I'd like to split the build process into two parts. First is running emulators, Firebase emulators, and second is the building the application itself. I also want to fix the issue with configuring enabling and disabling Auth Emulator through config. And one more thing here, it would be good to disable the main service worker in development, because it will speed up some development and it will simplify some stuff. So, and from the UI standpoint, I'm going to introduce Solid.toast library and the messages, error messages for the error messages. The Solid toast library actually displays toast messages for success, errors, etc. I'd like to move the login button to the top right hand corner and make it to a separate layer to make the original layout untouched. I'd like to also remove some native messaging permission check because it's not needed. It's included in the Firebase SDK for receiving the messaging token, so I can remove it, I think. And also one more step here, important step, I'm going to configure Firebase Firestore database to store the messaging token of a user in it, and it will be necessary for later sending notifications later on. I've also created a diagram of the components of this particular application. It may look like complex, but it's not actually. It has two parts. One left side is client part and right hand side server part. So left hand side has browser obviously, and the front end application itself, built with Solid.js and TypeScript, etc. And also Firebase service worker, which is responsible for receiving messages from the Firebase cloud messaging. Let me switch to the next slide. Next slide shows what parts have been implemented already. So you may see that authentication is ready, and the partial integration with Firebase Cloud Messaging is also ready through Firebase Service Worker. And today I'm going to add one more step to this process. I'm going to make it possible to store notification token to Firebase Firestore, which will be used later on through Firebase Cloud Functions to send messages to our users. So let me switch to my code and start from something trivial. I actually committed Firebase cache by mistake. I didn't have it in my git ignore file. So I'm going to first add it to git ignore file and then remove it from git. Sorry, it's something like this. And now I need to remove it from git, from the git cache. I can use command as remove actually, and rf parameter to remove without any asks or questions, and also be able to remove the folder because it's actually a folder with files. So, and also it's a good idea to only remove from cache, from git cache, not from the file system. So let me try to do that. Yes, it's actually removed from Git, but not removed from the file system, which is what I wanted to achieve. I can clear my console now and continue. Let's look at our package.json commands, and here I think we can actually improve stuff by, as I mentioned, we can actually separate this npm run build command from this Firebase Emulator start command. So let me actually call this command emulators and remove this npm run build from it. Let's keep it separate, run in separate terminals, which will allow us not to restart emulators every time with every rebuild, which means that we can save a lot of time on that. And but one thing here with this command, this build command, it's not ideal because it just builds the application just once, but I need to monitor changes and rebuild the application on every change, ideally. So what I can do here is to add watch parameter to the vit build command, and yeah, I think we are more or less good, but yeah, I think it's actually better to create a separate command for watch, build watch, and keep the standard build untouched. Yeah, and to test that, how it works, I'm going to run two separate terminals here through Visual Studio Code. First, I'm going to start emulators. While they are running, I'm going to open one more terminal and run the project build watch. So the emulator has been started, which is good, and the application has been rebuilt. And actually, as you may see, it doesn't stop the process. It actually monitors the changes. I will show you. Let me add some text here just to my main component, and you see the application is rebuilt automatically, which is good, which is what we wanted to achieve. To speed up this process, to avoid manual rebuilds as much as possible. Okay, I'm gonna open the application, the emulated application through a Firebase hosting. Can close some stuff here and open this in a separate tab. Let me open the application developer console. Yeah, so I think we are good. You may see this bar at the bottom which says that we are running in emulator mode, and last time I had an issue actually. The issue was related to this environment variable emulate, which I created to enable and disable emulation. So Firebase emulators. So I'm going to find the code which is responsible for that and try to fix the issue. Here we are more or less good, so everything is fine here. Here I had to hard code the emulation, but in fact I need to use the environment variable. Environment variable named emulate didn't work because with only exposes variables which start from with prefix. So now I'm going to add, I've just added the with prefix, and here I can actually use this through import meta env and the name of the variable. So because this variable is actually a string, I need to compare it with true. And here it's possible that this variable is not set at all. So for different environments for production, we may not need to set this variable explicitly. So I need to check for existence here, to not break my code. So now you see the true here, and if we reload the app, for some reason the bar disappeared. Yes, I know why. We need to restart the application again, because I think it needs to be reloaded manually. Let me check. Yeah, now you may see the bar again. And what would happen if I actually set it to false and rerun the application again? Not the application, the build process actually. Let me reload the page. Yeah, you see the notification bar disappeared. So this configuration setting actually works. So, but since I'm working locally, I need this to be true. I set it to be true, which is good. One more thing, actually, you probably noticed that this main service worker file is still working and actually caching the application, and sometimes I need to reload the page additionally just to make sure that the cache is reset, or the service worker actually allows me to consume the updated version of the application. So to prevent that, to simplify that, I'm going to disable this service worker for development. For that, I need to create a separate variable. Just a second. So PWA with PWA plugin actually supports it to be disabled through config. You may see the config of with PWA plugin here with all the settings, manifest, etc. And to disable this everything here, you can pass disable true, and let me try to reload the app and see if it actually applied. When you change settings with settings or environment variables, you still need to restart the build process in my particular case. So what if I now unregister the main service worker and reload the page? Yeah, the service worker disappeared, which is what I wanted to achieve. Good. And now let's make it configurable. What if I add a configuration variable, environment configuration variable, something like this? I don't know, let me copy it and maybe call it something like PWA disable, and compare it to true. Here also I need to check for existence just in case. And the problem with Vite is that if I set this environment variable through environment config this way, I will show you this way, the same way, it won't be consumed here, it won't be visible here, because the Vite config is processed before consuming the environment variables. So it will always be false, no matter what's the value. To prevent that, I'm going to pass this variable through the command. Okay, and I only need it for build watch command, because build will be used for production build. So PWA disable true is passed to the Vite build command. Let me reload the app, restart the build process first, and reload the page. Here you see that service worker is deleted, that it's not added anymore. If I open the source code of this page and try to find service worker or manifest, I cannot find it. It means that the PWA Vite plugin is not working, it's disabled, disabled as we actually want it to be. So yeah, I think infrastructural part is done here. Let me switch back to the agenda. Yeah, as you may see, the sped up the process, rebuilding process, by separating the Firebase emulator starts and the actual rebuilt application. And we also made it possible to enable disable Auth Emulator. We actually disabled the main service worker in development, which is good. Now we are ready to switch to the one of the most interesting parts, the UI part. And for that, I'm going to Google Solid Toast library. It has a separate website, but I need just GitHub page to get the installation instructions. I'm going to install this library as the production dependency. So while it's already installed, you may see here. And let me close this stuff. So now I can actually run the application again, and it's not all I need to do. I need actually to include toaster component to my main page or main layout component. In my particular case, it's app.tsx. I will just include this toaster component to the bottom. Let me import it. Yeah, now we are ready to send notifications. How can I test that the notifications, the toast messages, are working? I'm going to add on mount handler. It's on mount hook of this Solid.js, and here all the messages start from toast prefix. I can import it also, and for instance, let it be error, test error, to the application, reload the page, and you may see the toast message here with red exclamation mark, the circle with red exclamation mark. So the same way success messages can be added. Let me change it to success. Reload the page again, and you see the green check mark with success message. So it's working. Obviously we added the library. Now we need sort of an integration layer. I'd like to actually add a folder here and call it utils, or it can be services, but okay, for now let's keep it utils. First I'm going to move the main utils file to the utils folder, rename it to main for now, and I'm going to create a new file, new module, errors. This file will include functions related to error reporting and success messages and information messages, all the messages of the application, all the toast messages. Okay, so let's call it error for now. Here I can actually pass an error object. Normally it can be JavaScript error object or some other error objects, and also the message, the user-friendly message, which I'm going to display for the user. User doesn't have to see the technical message, the stack, the callback stack, etc. It's actually not a good idea to display this technical stuff to the end user. So, but still, I need to console log the original error message, just for debug purposes, for me to investigate issues, if any. But here I can actually display the user-friendly message. Let me import toast. I think this one is good. Let me create one more for success message. And here I don't need error object to be passed, because obviously we don't have any error object defined. And here I need to change it to success also. Okay, and here, what if I just replace this function with success? My utils, helpers, functions, reload the application, and you see that the test success message is displayed, which is what I wanted to achieve. Now let's remove the onMount hook here, because we don't need it here, and I'm going to replace the console error message here with my custom error handler. And here I need to set the user-friendly error message, something like sorry cannot logging at the moment. Please try again. I can actually remove this sorry. Sorry is, yeah, it's obviously I'm not happy as a developer. I'm also not happy about this error. So yeah, and actually errors occur, so you cannot avoid that. So it's a normal stuff. Actually, any user buys the app with errors included, so I shouldn't. Sorry. Maybe I mean, it's up to you. I cannot how to say, cannot dictate what you are going to do with your users and your application. But from my point of view, it's okay to just inform user about the error, and also ask to try it again. And also, you should keep this message short to not fill a lot of space. Yeah. So what if we test the authentication error? I'm going to do something wrong here. For instance, let me just throw an error. New error. Test error. Okay. Let me reload the page just in case. I'm going to use sign in button, and I'm going to add a new user, call them Bob, try to sign in. Now you can see cannot log in at the moment. Please try again. And here you see the error message itself, the stack trace, something like this. And one small change here, cannot log out at the moment. So now, from now on, we can use these message helpers everywhere throughout the app. And it is, I think it's very helpful for the end user to see what's going on, and for us also to see the console, or ask the user to open the developer's tools and make a screenshot of the error message from the console, and maybe debug. So yeah, and next thing I'm going to implement is to move the login button to the top right hand corner. For that, this section actually responsible for this authentication part, right? So I'm going to wrap this authentication part in div, and this div will have some class. Let's call it auth control. Let me save the file, reformat automatically, and I'm going to add styles for the auth control now to the app.css. First, I'm going to make it to a separate layer by setting position absolute for this particular element in the DOM tree. I need to set top 0. I need to set right 0 for absolute positioning to the top right hand corner. And also I think I can set some paging. Paging. Let me set it to 5 pixels. I will explain to you why I need it. Let me reload the page. And you see the button is positioned properly, and it's what we wanted to achieve. The only thing is that padding, I made a typo here, it's actually padding, DDG, so reload the page, and you see the sign in button got this padding around, which is good, which is what I wanted to achieve. And the only thing is that the padding from the top looks like a bit larger than the right padding. That's because every HTML page has its own default styles applied, but because these styles are not zero, like some padding from the top, from left, from right, etc., some component sizes, HTML button sizes, default styles, some sometimes you may have this this styling applied, and you need to reset it to zeros. For instance, Tailwind CSS has normalization CSS included in it already, but still you can actually, if you are not using Tailwind CSS, you can actually include normalized CSS into your application. I'm going to do it next time, but not today, because it's not planned. I just identified a possible place to improve. I made a note. We'll come back to it next time. Let's continue by looking at my plan again. We've just implemented all the UI planned tasks and features, which is good. The thing which is remaining for today is notifications, improvements, and working on the Firestore database, etc. I will show you now. This part, store stocking, from Solid.js application to Firebase Firestore. Okay, let me first remove the unnecessary redundant permission check. Okay, let me open Firebase here, registration. Here in this file, in this module, you see request permission function, and this request permission function actually has a native permission check. But if we take a look inside of the get token function from Firebase SDK, we can find the paragraph which says that if the permission is not yet has not been yet granted, this method, this function, will actually ask for permission, meaning that we may not need this native permission check here. So I'm going to remove this native permission check to simplify the code. Okay, let me save. And since it's not requesting permission function anymore, we need to rename it to something like get token, get messaging token. Okay, and yeah, let's try it if it works or not. I'm going to switch back to the application, reload the page, and you see it's working. It's requesting token actually, but it doesn't ask for permission, because the permissions actually given. If I press the reset permission button here and reload the page, what would happen is that you see this notifications blocked stuff, and I'm going to allow for this site, and I need to some messages from Firebase. I'm not going to investigate these issues here because I'm going to change the process a little bit, but you can still see the token here, and this token is necessary for sending messages later on. So we need to save this token in the Firebase Firestore database. To do that, here, save the token. Okay. To do that, I need to go to Firebase actually. Firebase, if this service Firestore database is not added to your list, you need to go to all products, find Firebase Firestore in the list. Okay, yeah, let me just use search. Firestore, it's not found here for some reason. Yeah, here, it's at the top. You need to click this cloud Firestore. Here I have it already configured. There you would need to press enable Firestore, something like this. It will ask something for where you'd like to locate your database, what should be the data center for the database. You can choose from the United States, Europe, Asia, etc. It's up to you. I actually chose the United States for this particular test application, for this particular test version of the application, so it's not really important right now. But now when you edit the database, you see the collections, all the collections. Collection is like a table in Firebase Firestore, and this table will have some collection items or documents in terms of the Firestore database. So now you see that the list is empty, so they don't have any collections, we don't have any documents. The important stuff here is rules. Let it loads the rules. The default rules look like the following. So the access to all documents, read and write access to all documents, is actually disabled, because otherwise it should return true here. And my collection will be called, okay, I will just write it down here, Firebase Cloud Messaging Tokens, so VCM tokens. Okay, and I need to actually set the name, something like here, something like that here, the token name or something, the token passed as an ID to the collection, as a collection item, something like this. I'm going to allow writing to the database for authenticated users. Okay, let me remove reading, because I'm not going to allow reading. Allow read if false, but allow write if request is always available, because you make your request to the Firebase Firestore database, and if the user is authenticated, the auth property should not be null. So I can compare it with null, and if it's not null, allow write access. So I'm going to push these changes to the database here, and you actually can change this configuration, the rules, through your application settings. For now I just showed you that it's possible to do it through the UI, the Cloud Firestore UI, and also you can add some indices here, single field or composite index, and you see some some usage statistics here, extensions. I'm not going to cover extensions for now. My application is pretty simple at this point, so I don't need any extensions. But yeah, we've just configured rules, access rules for this particular database, and now I'm going to switch to my code, close the files which I don't need anymore, and here I'm going to start from actually installing Firebase Emulator for Firebase storage. Yeah, and it actually has emulator for Firebase storage. To save your money, to save your quota, you can actually test the application fully locally. For that you need the emulator. Firebase init, I'm going to run the init, the main init command, and choose here Firestore configuration first, and also emulators. Let's press enter. It actually found the database created on Firestore, and now it should suggest me creating Firestore rules, and yes, I agree. I need some rules in my code base. Indices file also, good. And now the last part is adding Firebase Firestore Emulator. Enter. I'm going to use default port for that, but if this port 8080 is occupied already in your system, you can choose whichever port you prefer, whichever is available. Would you like to download emulators? Of course I would. So it created some configuration files. Let's take a look at them. The rules file, you see that it actually includes all the settings I added through UI, which is good. I don't need to copy them manually. The index file is empty, semi-empty. It has empty field values. No index is created yet. And Firebase.js config actually got the field, Firestore field, with the port number, and Firestore section actually connects the application with the configuration files for rules and for indexes. Now let's take a look at this also. Yeah, this one is not changed. It's the name of the project. Okay, now I'm going to run the emulators again through the same command. It should start all the emulators enabled, and the emulators have their own UI, so yeah, it needs some time to run. And if I open the main emulator UI, I can now see that Firestore emulator is enabled. I can go to the Firestore emulator and see almost the same UI which is on Firebase Firestore. So yeah, let me configure my application to actually use the emulator, Firebase emulator, for local development, the same way I did for the authentication. So I'm going to create a folder in core Firebase and call it Firestore, and I'm going to add the same or almost the same module for initialization, but here I need to change the get auth function to get Firestore, and also good idea to rename the variable to Firestore. Okay, and this function connect Firestore should be renamed to connect Firestore emulator from Firebase Firestore. Yes. And the parameter list is a little bit different here. It needs a host and port to be separate parameters. Obviously because it's not actually HTTP, the protocol which is used for communicating with database is not HTTP, but I'm not sure exactly. The port number is also different. You remember the port number Firestore 8080. You can always see the port numbers here or through UI if you need them. So I'm going to copy this port number. Yeah, I'm lazy here. So let me save the file, and here it needs number, not string. So now if I rerun the application, it should actually start the Firebase in emulation mode and connect to the emulator, which is good. But to test that, we also need actually I need to call the function to store this token actually. So what's the command for storing documents on Firebase? We can actually use the documentation. You can always Google something like Firestore set create document, okay, and open the official documentation. The documentation is normally very good, so you can scroll down a little bit. It instructs you how to configure the app, which is I've just done myself without looking at the documentation. And here you see the set document function for setting a document. What's the difference between, for instance, adding a document and setting a document? The difference is that if you use add document, Firebase itself creates a unique ID for this particular document, for this particular row, if you like. But set document actually receives the ID explicitly, and in my case I actually need to pass the token as an ID for this document. So I'm going to copy the set document instructions. Let me just set document instructions and put it right inside the get messaging token function. For now it's okay, I'm just testing. I will refactor it later. It's not that critical here. And I can actually use them here also, and catch, of course. Don't forget to catch errors. And now we have a good way to catch errors, right? We have error function, and I need to set the message cannot store the token. Just information message here. And what else? The result. I need to fix my mistake here. And so if I get to the then part, then I can assume that the process has been finished successfully. But now I need to import these functions from Firebase Firestore, and the document function also. And this DB is our Firebase stuff which we return from Firestore init. Firestore here should be good. Let me take a look and see what's the name for the collection. VCM tokens, Firebase Cloud Messaging Tokens. This is the name of the collection, and this is the index, and the index in my case is our token, right? And these parameters should be updated here. I'm going to save the user ID, user unique ID from authentication. Let me just get current user and UI of the current user here. So user needs to be authenticated before requesting the token. To do that, I also need a button, because now we request permissions on page load, but we don't need actually to request permission on page load. We may just request it when we need it. So let me create a button just for test purposes. I will create a button and call it request permissions. Request permissions, or actually I can actually name it as request permissions and save token. And on click handler we'll have a new function. I'm going to just copy the existing functions for authentication and handle save click, and I don't need any error messages here, or it's not error, actually it's event, sorry for my mistake. Yeah, and I needed to it's a good practice, I think, to prevent default behavior for buttons, yeah, to not trigger any other actions or events attached to it. So I'm going to use it still, and I'm going to get messaging token here as an async function. Okay, and in case of error, we actually handle errors inside the function. We don't need to handle errors outside, at least for this particular stage. At this particular stage, I'm going to use this just this call. So, and the handler is here, save the file, and now by clicking this button here, I'm going to trigger first requesting permissions if they are not set. Second, requesting the token, and then sending the token to Firebase Firestore. Now I need to rerun my application, not this terminal, actually this one. I need to rerun my application for the emulation changes to take effect, just in case, to be safe. Okay. And I can actually remove the get messaging token from the top, from the onMount handler, which we already have here, at least for now. Let us request the notification token on demand. I will just come back to my application, reload the page, and here before I click in this button, I need to authenticate my user, right? And to authenticate my user, I need to call this authentication stuff also. So I need to, before calling get messaging token, I need to call the authentication. Yeah, it looks messy, I mean, in terms of requesting different stuff here, but yeah, it's just to show you that the Firebase Firestore is working, the local emulator is working, and later I will be able to improve it and make the user flow very smooth and obvious. So let me click the request permission and save token button here, and one note here is that the application is run in emulation mode, which is what I needed. So let me click the permissions button, select my user. I don't have any users here yet. Let's call them Bob again. And you see that the Firebase SDK connected to local Auth Emulator and local Firebase Emulator. And actually, it should have created a document in the database. And yes, it did. So you see the document ID is our long token value, and also our user ID is set to this unique Firebase authentication ID. So this is what we wanted to achieve, and it's easier now to, for instance, find a user for a particular token, or find a token for a particular user using some queries, Firebase queries. I will get to that point later on, but for now we are good. Let's get back to our diagram first. You see that we just implemented storing token to the Firebase Firestore, and yeah, now we are ready to continue. And if I check my plans, I can see that I removed the permission check, I configured Firebase Firestore locally, and also the remote service, the production service, and I implemented storing a token in Firebase Firestore, which is good. I've just finished my plan, finished implementing my plan, my agenda, and I think it's a good step forward. I mean, connecting to Firebase Firestore and storing the token. Now Firebase can actually send messages to our user, but for that we need to implement some cloud functions. Here you see cloud functions, and yeah, I will get to that in my next videos. For now, we are good. Thank you very much for your time. See you later.